I
Okay.
love and hate this quote at the same time. He said, without struggle, there is no progress.
Progress.
I hate that quote because I was like, why can't I have progress without struggle? And honestly, the most progress I have had in my life has all come from struggle. And
Yep.
I'm like, damn, he knew what he was talking about. But
Yes.
I don't, as much as I can, reduce any struggle, I'm going to try.
Absolutely.
But it's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true. And I think when you own your struggle, then you can be connected to authenticity. Without owning your struggle, you can't be authentic.
And you don't know until you know. And then it's just like there's an awakening that happens and you're different. People see it. They
Yeah.
feel it. It shows on you. It comes through you. It's just like it oozes out of you all of a sudden. And I think it's kind of a thing that people could always see was there, like that potential. But what
Mhm.
happens when people have potential without direction or without they've been growing without framework?
So I think when people have potential and they're growing without framework or structure, it's just random. You're like
Okay.
really buying a lotto ticket. You don't know what's gonna happen. I think there's a chance. Of course, you could always win, just like 1 in a million, whatever chances. But the likelihood that you will get what you want to get that pot of gold that you're trying to buy is just lower. It's just not the probability is just much lower without
Yeah.
a strategy and a framework to achieve your goals. And I will say not only is it a lower probability, it's less efficient because as a dynamic human being, there's multiple things that are going on in your life. If you are operating without a framework or a plan, there is inevitably other things that are not getting the attention they deserve.
Uh-huh.
And so you may be steamrolling, like, I'm going to go after this thing, go after it, go after it. And you hopefully will get that thing because you're aligned to that goal. But guess how many other things you're missing out on, right? And if you
Yeah.
had a framework, a strategy to be like, yes, this is how I'm going to spend my time to be efficient, but I want to grow my empathy. I want to have EQ. I want to have travel experiences. I want to have, I want to go on a ski trip with my friends, right? Like I
We
want to
should
make
run that back.
sure so you have to plan it, right?
Mhm.
Because without a plan, you won't be able to maximize your time and to
Yeah.
make sure you are taking care of the things that also matter to you. And I think that's the part of the next 20 and getting into part of having a family, having people who are prioritizing your life. That structures your time,
Yeah.
right? You're like, no, this is important to me. I want to spend my time this way. So I'm aligned to achieving this goal. You can't do that if you don't have like a strategy. You will inevitably miss
Yeah.
out.
As you were speaking, something came up for some people in going back to that earlier question about people taking action without strategy. A lot of people are operating in survival mode and don't realize it. And when you're in survival mode, you aren't thinking clearly. You're going off of emotion and
Reflexes.
yep. I was gonna say instinct sometimes, and sometimes it's not even that. You're just doing whatever comes to mind. And so taking that beat is really, really helpful because sometimes when you just go without it, you end up cleaning up more, using more resources, losing more time, money, energy, all of these things. And some people, speaking of like factory settings and changing those, they need to release the survival factory setting and I think for so many people, they're like, well, this is what got me here. Yes, it did, but it's no longer working. Now it's working against you. What you were previously using that was successful, you see what's happening, but you refuse to let it go. And that comfort of the thing that got you there, like that's what made you strong. You no longer need it. I think a lot of people struggle to release those things that gave them safety, that gave them power, that gave them drive. Now that they've arrived, they're not sure what to
Arrived.
replace it with. Yeah.
To me, there's so many quotes on everything you said.
Yep.
Success,
Yep.
arrived, what got them there, where is
Yep.
there, where is here. Like all of that is so just like so subjective. In a lot of ways. I mean, there's concrete objectivity like shelter, right?
Yeah.
Health, access to health. You know what I mean? That grounds it in reality. But I think there's this existential issue. And I'm going to try to articulate what I think can help be a compass to
Okay.
understand the 2. So, in your body, you observe your actions, right? Like you're voluntarily in control. And then there's the observer of the observer,
Okay.
right? That's what people call spirit, soul, etc. But what is the distance between the observer to the next observer?
Okay.
What is that? I think when we talk about survival mode, there's no distance between those two entities. And then when you get to alignment, there's more distance. So the observer behind the observer can start to see what's happening. And when you've got time between the two, you can then start to make different choices. But when they're so tight, you can't. You got to have some distance between who you really are as a formless being and who you are as a person and the identities you created.
Dr. Cross. I got to put the doc on it right now because the way that you just simplified that, and I was like, yes, and how that just rang true for me when I came out of survival mode. And like I was saying earlier, I began to hear and see
Mhm.
differently because there was room. And the observer of the observer, this is rich.
I'm glad.
This is so good, and I hope this is resonating with people and taking what seems so complex and simplifying it in a way where people can really and truly, like, take it in and hear it. Really. Man.
And I will say like that as I've come, like that's part of my gift. Right?
Yeah.
That's why I created, the strategylab.com. That's why like I've done a lot of the things I've done is because I've been curious, right, to crack the code. I've been curious to figure out what is sort of this interconnected phenomena, right? I think as a population geneticist, I genuinely know we are 99% the same. You talk about we are like
It's really
living.
99%?
Yeah, like, it is, like, it's not much that actually separates us. I wrote about this even in my dissertation in, like, the intro.
Yeah.
Like, there's what's called SNPs. They're called single nucleotide polymorphisms, right? You take a gene, say there's 10 sites, there's, like, a little component in there where the nucleotide, so ATCG, the backbone of DNA, the T may be a G for somebody and it may be a T for somebody else. Like, that's a SNP, single nucleotide polymorphism, and then the difference that may be switched. And
Okay.
then as the genes, are in there, the proteins and different things, it will have a different effect phenotypically. So, which is why somebody may have different eye color or different hair texture or shape of their lips. Maybe they have a Cupid's bow lip versus a different, So these are small differences. These are all really small.
Yeah, they are.
They're teeny tiny differences. We are way more alike. I mean, so when you say we were living life for the first time, I agree with you in the sense of like, the observer is living it for really the first time. But
Mhm.
our bodies and different things, we are a remix of
Yeah.
genetic material that has
Yep.
been here
Yeah.
for eons. So technically, we aren't living life for the first time.
Yeah.
The observer of the observer of is getting a chance to kinda, like, take its turn to have a journey, have an experience. But
Yeah.
that part doesn't go away, right? That came from space. That distance is space. Outer
Mm.
space is space. It doesn't just go away. It's always there. It's been there. It's just taken on this form for a period of time. So in a lot of ways, we have been here. We've always been here and we will continue to be here. But we have this journey that we're on now to kinda have, like, a cool experience.
Wow. Wow. Because, I'm thinking about it more simplistically, right? Like when we have characteristics, behaviors, and traits of people that come before us in our generation and we've never ever been exposed to them.
Mhm.
There's just
Yeah.
like a knowing or it just comes out of us,
Mhm.
And you're right. Like when you think about all those things and intergenerationally, how these things are, yeah, so it is and it's not. And I like the way that you framed that with the observer. You giving me a lot to think about and reflect on. Listen, let me find out. I'm about to be over there at the strategy lab getting this life together.
Thank
Because so
Look.
speaking of, what does it mean to design a life versus responding or reacting to life, and everything happening around us?
Yeah, I think it becomes more fun,
Okay.
hopefully, but it's also I think, again, you can't design something if you don't know what you want from it or, like, why you're doing it.
Mm,
And everybody's why doesn't have to be the same, and it's not the same, which is the reason we've got so many different things going on in the world. Your why doesn't have to be my why, and that's completely okay. I think that, but when you do, you know, it's so funny. It's kinda like I think this relates to it, but, like, this is another phrase that comes to mind when I think about things like design is like Anna Wintour was, like, being interviewed by, like, I think photographers, and they were like, "Well, what makes a good photographer? Like, when do you know, like, they're ready?"
Okay.
She was like, "They have a perspective." And to me, it's
Hmm.
anchored into art. They have so when you start to see a certain person, when they have honed their
Yeah.
perspective, you can see it in their work,
Okay.
right? So for me, designing a life is around honing your perspective and starting to then live it with that point of view.
Okay.
And then you can start to see a through line in almost everything this person does. And you're like, that is uniquely them. It's a
Yeah.
fingerprint. It's like owning what is your fingerprint
Say you were here without
for
saying you
yourself.
were here. Oh, that's
And that's
good.
what I think it really means. Like, cause then it's gonna be unique, right?
Mhm.
It's gonna be unique
Mhm.
to you. And we
Yeah.
definitely need more of that, and I don't even me, like I'm trying to get there, right? Like I think in a lot of ways I have figured a lot of stuff out, but it's a journey still,
Absolutely.
to like figure that out.
And I think we're always figuring it out. And I remember telling someone that's been 2 years now since I've said this. Like these last 2 years have gone so fast, but so much has happened. But I remember saying, like, I feel like I'm on like my fourth life, my third or fourth life.
Mhm.
And it aligns with like what you were saying, like first 20s, second 20s or whatever. But
Yeah.
the just different stages of my life, I was a different person, you
Yeah.
know, and just continuously evolving. Obviously, there were still things that were just uniquely Genie, finding out, discovering, and really connecting with who I am. And I found this photo. I guess I'm gonna say I found it, but I looked at it again during that time where I was transforming or I was evolving again,
Mhm.
that period of like silence when I was spending more time by myself. I saw this photo of me as a kid with the biggest, beautiful, like carefree, I was free, like smile is the only way that I could
Yeah.
think of. And then the, you could just see it.
You could see it, like the presence and it was just there.
I'm going to
Yeah.
see if I can insert this picture. And brother, this is my actual brother, Kevin. I'm sorry, but you're in the photo. So
Ah,
I don't want to crop you out of it because it's obvious that you're there.
I love it.
But and I was like, this is who is here. Because a lot of us, we
Mm.
hide that self. And in this photo, I'm like 3 or 4 years old. I think I'm 4. But I have the same face, same smile. Like, I love it. And then I see
Oh,
her and I was like, I had to become a different version to protect her. That's
of
the
course.
survival mode, right? And then when you come out of it, she's free to come out and play. She's
Mm,
free to come out and explore. She's free to be herself. She knows who she is now. She's
mhm.
secure. She's grounded. So it takes a lot to like make her
Yeah,
stutter or, trip and stumble. And it's a beautiful thing when you can do that because it's like at any moment I can tuck her away because Dr. J can protect her. But it's free for her to be out.
yeah.
Let her be out.
We build the first observer. The second observer is always there. So when you
Say
saw
more.
your child self, the original observer of the observer is first.
Yeah.
That's there. Then
Yeah.
as you grow, you create the other observer.
Love
The
this.
original observer is always there.
Yeah.
And
Waiting.
then you just merge them, and operate from survival mode. But then you have to recreate, understand like, oh, I built this identity. I built, this thing. That's not necessarily who I am. And I think that like that's part of the process of aging is like you start off, boom, I'm space. I'm here. A kid doesn't identify as a girl or a boy or a this or that. Like they're told, oh, girls wear pink. They start regurgitating what's been told. That's
Yep.
we're building the first observer. Well, the second.
Yeah.
And then as you get older, you're like, I get it. I get why some of this stuff was indoctrinated in because it makes sense
Hmm.
to a degree. But that still doesn't mean that's who I really am.
Right.
So I think, circling to your conversation around like how do we be ourselves? We have to identify who is not us within us.
Who is
And I
not
think
us within us. That's good.
and then when you do that, you can be like, "All right, then the rest is probably me."
Yep. Yep. And when you go through that, like it's something completely different. Again, I keep using that word freedom, or you could even say liberation because you're liberating yourself.
Yeah,
Or would you say is it the original observer that's liberating you or like
exactly.
yeah, but you have to find your way. Like it's just waiting. Like this is deep. I can't wait to like live more and
Mm,
see this continue to
yeah.
unfold. Oh, so
Yeah.
we could keep going in that direction, but I also want to give folks some strategy for like
Yes.
love
Yes,
and
yes.
relationships, right? Because this is the month of love. So why do and thank you for this great foundation. And this was like felt like more spiritual than sciencey, but somehow we got both in there and I love it. But why do you think so many relationships fail even when there's attraction and good intention?
Oh my gosh, that's tough. Why do
I know.
relationships fail when there is attraction and intention?
Hmm.
Well, look, they're starting out good because sometimes it's hard to have that attraction and intention. But I think honestly, it's that becomes I think more. It's hard to generalize
Hmm.
when those situations fail because I think there's a little more nuance because those are
Yeah.
two big pillars that keep relationships together.
Right.
So for them, those pillars to remain intact and it for to still the structure of the relationship crumble, I think it becomes like really unique on those circumstances. Because a lot of the reasons relationships stay together is because two people have that intention. They want to be together. One of the biggest factors in remaining together is two people being like, I want to be together. I want to be in a relationship.
Yeah.
And so I think when you have that, that's of one of the biggest pieces is people being like, I want to be married. It doesn't necessarily need to be to this person, but I'm subscribing to this structure. And somebody else is like, I'm subscribing to this structure as well. That to me is how I'm thinking about intention. And if you're like, I want this too, that's major,
Hmm.
and you think about attraction. Attraction is tricky because there's there's a study I think is like if you are around most people end up being with somebody, like there's like a 60% chance of you being attracted to somebody if you're in like the same environment with them. Like a
Okay.
lot of it is proximity to a
Uh-huh.
degree.
Okay, so what you're
Mm.
saying is I need to go position myself. Okay, alright.
So a lot of it is that. Like if you're in the space, like and you're around, like attraction kind of just happens.
Yeah,
But I would say, if we're talking about attraction to be like, there's the sexual chemistry, if I'm moving attraction into chemistry, then it's a much more, I think, dynamic thing to have. If you have the chemistry, attraction, and intention, the reason I think things don't necessarily materialize, maybe there could still be some misalignment with values. There could
mhm,
still be misalignment with how one wants to live their life. I
yeah,
would say that's probably the bigger one. Somebody's like, "I wanna be married, I'm attracted to you, but I also, like, wanna spend a lot of time with my family." Like, I want my family involved. People are like, "I don't wanna deal with that." Like me, like, I love people's families, but I like a nuclear family,
yeah,
and we're making a new family together.
yeah,
Like, it's us. So, I mean, even though I could be attracted to you and wanna be married, that could be another issue. So I think that there could be some ways of how you want to live your life that are
yeah,
probably not aligned. So that's how I would probably bucket it to be like, that's
yeah,
probably where the issue is. And there's also could be timing. I think timing is a thing that is not given as much credit as it deserves when other things are aligned.
mhm, mhm,
It could genuinely just be bad timing, because you could think about how you meet people. Like especially if it's not necessarily online, even if it is online, like it took so much for you both to be on this platform at the same time to then click and then like. Same thing about going out to a bar. You could have just been at home sleep. You could have had a stomach ache. And you have had those many of nights. But tonight, you're out. Somebody else also out. And then you meet. That's timing.
yeah,
So within the relationship, the factor of time doesn't go away, right?
yeah,
It's like now I'm also changing. I may want something different. How do I want to spend my time? And if you guys don't want to spend your time in the same way, even when these other things are aligned, it can cause conflict.
Mhm.
And I think that that's something that needs to be thought of. Because for me, I know now, like in a partnership, like I want camaraderie, like I want a companion. I
Yeah.
want somebody to spend my time with that I
Mhm.
enjoy spending time together. Like that is top of mind now. So when I'm hanging out, I'm like, yeah, we can go to restaurants, do whatever, but I want to travel, right? I want to
Let's
do
go.
other things. So and removing resources, traveling could be, let's go to like a cool vintage shop. Like, do you like doing stuff like that? Do you want to cook? Can we make up things? Can we go into make believe status and just like enjoy
I
each other?
love this. It's like the your inner child. It's like, yeah, present.
And so for me, that's critical. Like
Yeah.
if I don't enjoy spending time with you, because for me, I gotta have attraction to you. And
Number
I
1.
gotta have like we gotta be aligned if you want the structure of a relationship,
Yep.
regardless if it's monogamous or poly or whatever you guys are ascribing to. But to me, the biggest part is do I want to spend my time with you?
Yeah, that's good. And I appreciate that you didn't go with the easy answer to say strategy. It's why they don't, right? And you really went into it. There was so much richness that's in there, but I love to hear that. And it takes the lived experience to know what you do and don't. And so so many people don't give enough appreciation to those failed relationships when it's
Mhm.
all data. It's about you,
For
it's about
sure.
people, and if you don't use it,
You're
then
just
you'll
inevitably gonna repeat it.
Yep,
In
yep,
different forms. Somebody might be taller, shorter, bigger, skinnier, more money, less money, older, younger, different ancestries, different
yep,
backgrounds. But a lot of times you will just draw that same pattern.
yep, yep, that's good, which I think you're moving us and so you talked about this timing part already, but, like, if we're talking about strategy and healthy relationships, what does strategy like, what does that reveal about choosing partners? If you
Yeah.
wanna talk more about timing, you can, and what does it also reveal about emotional investment?
I think you have to have like your own framework, right? I think we kind of in the last scenario talked about, chemistry, intention, and then I added time. Like, say that's my framework for dating. And then you got to make sure those broader categories and you can have drill downs in each one of those. So, in intention, again, structure of a relationship. What is the structure of a relationship that I want? Is that going to be something that's going to be aligned to them? You know, and then intention even is even broader than just structure of relationship. It's how do I want to be treated? Am I okay with certain things? Like what are my non-negotiables? We go to that second category, alignment, chemistry or
Mhm.
attraction, chemistry. How familiar is it? Because a lot of chemistry is familiarity. So you have to be careful,
Yep.
right? Because it's like this person reminds me of my dad. But your dad probably, pros and cons. This person reminds me of my ex. Oh, they seem
Look at that
fine.
relationship.
Oh, they look good. They're just a better version of the ex. Are they? So much chemistry. Chemistry, I think, is important. I love chemistry. Let's be
Oh, it
clear.
feels good.
Feels so good. And I think it is important. But you can grow. Like if there's certain components to it, right? So for me, it's hard for me to have chemistry with someone who has bad hygiene. It's just hard.
I think that's a general
Like
consensus.
it's hard for me to do that. So like how they take care of themselves like is important. You know what I mean? Like that will erode the attraction and the chemistry. So, like how they live their lives,
I'm
like how they
sorry.
keep their
I
spaces.
am so childish because I just thought of a moment. I remember meeting this guy, and when I tell you, bro was fine and educated, that man opened his mouth and started speaking, and I was like,
Blown away. Good night.
literally, I didn't do
Sorry,
that
sir.
face, but I was like, what is this is not real. No, that's just like a one off. That was a random something in the air. No, it was coming
Look.
out of him. And I was like,
Mm-mm,
ruined,
mm.
ruined.
Right. And there may be reasons for that or
And
whatever,
there
but
was
just say
behavior. There were a
in
couple
my
behaviors
framework,
too. But yeah.
On the drop down on attraction, the hygiene is there. It's just there, you know? And so there's the other drop downs. And then I think in the timing one, I think is the more dynamic one because that's connected to like who you are in this time and age. And like if things are going great for you, that's great. If they're not, like you may not feel as confident in who you are, you may not feel like this is the best physical version that you're in. You may feel like, your reasoning for wanting a partnership in different ways may be shifted. So to me, a healthy way is to allow some wiggle room, right?
Mm, mhm.
Don't have it so fixed because time is a variable that changes, right?
Yeah.
And it can even influence, a lot of the other things too. So I think coming up with your framework, but with dating, I think it is so important to have an open mind and try things you may not normally do. And just because you don't feel like there's chemistry, I think you should still go on the date.
Yeah.
I think you should still go on the date. And you could then be like, you know what, these other buckets are checking. And I do know you can grow to love someone. You can
Absolutely.
grow attraction. Like these are things you can do. If especially when you value how this person is showing up in your life. Because I have definitely, even more recently been like, oh my gosh, this person's personality is amazing. Like, are they normally my physical fit normal type? Like, maybe not. But that's not as important as it is to me as how I want to spend my time and enjoy life. That is more important to me now. When I was younger, not as much. But now I want a partner I can feel safe with.
Yep.
You know, it, as long as they are committed to a healthy lifestyle, that's what's most important because I mean, clearly there's accidents that can happen, but it's important to have a person who is connected to health and wellness independently of you because that means you can have a chance at having a long life together.
Mhm. It's very
And to
practical.
me, I don't want to find somebody I like spending time with, and then they're just unhealthy in a lot of ways. Where it's like we ain't gonna even get that much time together. Like I'm want a lifelong partnership where we can do life together, and that means we both need to be committed to health. We both need to be completed to sleep and water. Right? So that's part of the alignment piece. And they can get aligned in different things, but I think knowing what your core things are real needs that
Yeah.
are connected to how you want to live your life, getting clear on that, building a framework from that, not getting caught up in the silly stuff around, a lot of superficial materialism. Cause at a certain point, unless we all get access to Kris Jenner's, surgery, we're gonna age,
We are. Yeah.
or Tony. Like, look, certain people that are not aging, but most of us will. Finding somebody who's attracted to you, regardless of you looking like, an AI character or not. It should be, to me, part of your algorithm. And that's where personality, attraction, spend my time, this person make me laugh, sense of humor. I think these things become much more prioritized versus like, can this person match me? Are they on my level? I hear a lot of those narratives that I think are wild, but to me, I hear a lot of that and I don't think it's aligned to what they actually really want.
Okay. Because really, you don't match me. You don't want, but then you're looking to compete with your partner. That's one of those coded things, right? Like, and a lot of people they don't know them yet. They don't know that, or even sometimes understand what has motivated them. Maybe
Right.
competition has been that, and then they think that brings out the best in them. It's an unconscious thing, and so then they compete in their relationship because they're used to competing everywhere that they've been or having to fight for the front, to be out front. So that's very interesting. There's so much. I love that what you're saying about you have to decide like what's in your framework? Like what do you need in there? And you've been speaking a lot about misalignment. So one, how does it differ from incompatibility? And then how does misalignment show up in dating?
Well, incompatibility, and misalignment in dating, these are to me, they're not these terms together are not mutually exclusive, right? I think incompatibility and misalignment in dating go hand in hand in a lot of ways. I think one of the benefits I would say is of getting older is that misalignment and incompatibility become almost inextricably linked. Like, if I'm not aligned with you, I'm incompatible. Regardless of how fine you are, regardless of how much money you make, regardless of how well traveled you are, and like the chemistry could be crazy. We're not a match. Like if we're not aligned, because I know how I want to show up, right? I'm not gonna be messaging you 20 times a day to get one message back from you. That's even though all this other stuff could be great. That's misalignment and therefore incompatible. So I think that's how it shows. I think
Yeah.
it's operating from like, what are you willing? Because for me, I'm a reciprocity person,
Um,
right? You give, I'll take. I'm giving, you take. Like it doesn't have to always be 50-50. It definitely doesn't because it's never always 50-50.
Right.
But there has to be, we gotta be volleying. We gotta volley. Like I want a person who's gonna volley. I'm telling you, I'm thinking about you, right? I want to hear you thinking about me too. At some
Yeah.
point, I said, oh my gosh, like I miss you. I like you. Okay. You're like, all right, you got about a good, couple days. And then if you don't tell me you like me back, they're like, oh, well, I just don't really say that. Well, I need to hear it.
Hello? You need to let me know
So
something.
like, you gotta be clear about what you need, and then for me, if you like the person enough, you then tell them, "Hey, I haven't heard you say," and I've gone through this too, like, where it's like, I'm now more clear about how I'm feeling, right? And then if I feel like the person isn't telling me back that same reciprocity, then I'm like, but then I feel like there's chemistry, right? I feel like the vibe is there. Like, it feels like this is reciprocal, but they're not saying it.
Mhm.
So then I will be like, well, let me ask to make sure. So I do have enough, and I nobody likes rejection. Let's be clear
Right.
about that.
I was
It's not
thinking you have to
fun.
be really secure to ask that question too.
It's not fun. But it's like I don't want to put this in the incompatible misalignment box if he, isn't comfortable telling me the word.
Mhm.
'Cause I think a lot of men in particular, like the way that a lot of them are socialized, are like, "Don't talk about your feelings," right?
Yeah.
Especially certain career choices they might have. So for me, I'm like, maybe you do like me and I just need to ask you, or you don't. But either way, I don't wanna guess. So let me ask you directly. And then, then I'm like, I, waited a couple days. I'm like, all right. I'm like, hey, can we talk for a second? Set it up. Set the
Mhm.
conversation up. Can we talk? Everybody always like, "Oh, that means I need to pay attention." Yes, that's exactly what it means.
Mhm.
Please pay attention to what I'm about to say, because 'cause I'm gonna make a decision off of this conversation,
Yeah.
right? Like, this is a data collection moment. In clinical trials, we call this a clinical endpoint. We're at this point where we're gonna deviate in this protocol or
I
continue.
love how science is really becoming so practical in what you're saying, and that people need to do more of this, really and truly.
Yeah. So this conversation time, we've been cool, we've been hanging out, we've been going on dates. I feel like the vibes are there. We've made out a few times. Like I feel like you're bringing out this side of me that's just like more animated, But I'm just like, are you like more of a nonverbal person, or Because I feel like the vibe there. You seem like you sense energy. Like just like talk to me. What's going on?
I love that you just embodied like classic curiosity over judgment. You didn't come with the confrontation. Well, you don't do this, you don't do that. You went, you shared facts and observations, and then asked your question so that it was clear y'all are operating in the same context. So then we'll win. They don't have to ask all of this. Tell me when. No, and it's a safer space to be open. And they were like, oh, well, I thought you knew because I da 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 da. And sometimes you just have to give people the room. And sometimes it is creating that emotional safety because let's be honest, if we have this programming and not talking about feelings, right? Like I do agree that you can see that more with men, but women can be that way as well. And or letting the man say the things first. But
Mhm.
to just create an opportunity that's not accusatory, it's not
Mm-mm.
jumping to conclusions or any of that. Like, no, I'm giving you the room to tell me what it is in a space that's safe versus other spaces sometimes where people are attacked, accused, or said like you're not doing enough, or they play games, they do the pull away and all of that.
I feel like another tactic I've used recently too is, I guess I've done it over the years, but now in the context of strategy and dating, it's like, like, I'm fine removing myself from a dynamic,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
But at the same time, my now removal isn't like, "I don't wanna talk to you, we can't be cordial, I'm mad, my feelings are hurt."
Yeah.
It's like, cause we are a community, right? So, I'm so aware of that. So,
Yeah.
I don't want to intentionally or unintentionally damage a
Yep.
member of my community that would probably be a good match for somebody else that I care for.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of us are in relationships or not in relationships, and we have friend circles. We're dating from similar pools. So for me to get nasty or be angry with this person, and I have a homeboy who would be great or a homegirl who would be great and wants a relationship with a great partner, and we're always like, I don't know why they're single. I don't know why she's single. Like, there's so many good, like she's such a great person. Well, you dating is contributing to damaging the community when you also aren't honoring this other reality that's taking
Mhm.
place.
Mhm.
So for me, I'm aware of that. I want my friends to be happy. I want there to be options, right? And as I'm in the first player role right now, I cannot, maybe that's not the best role for me.
Yeah.
And I want to handle or exit this situation without it being something damaging.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why I think helps inform my approach, where it's just like I am curious and I don't feel as sort of able to be rejected to a degree that hurts me emotionally because this person is part of the community as well.
Yeah.
And I think when you have that mentality, it motivates you to have conversations in certain ways and it
Mhm.
motivates you to engage with a person. Because the tactic that I ended up using was like, "Oh, like, hey, just keeping it real." I'm like, "We haven't, had sex yet. This is weird for me. So, like, why
Okay.
is this not happening?" So this is my own thoughts, right? So then I'm like, "How do I engage this tactfully in a conversation?"
Right.
And so, long story short, ended up being like, okay, so now that I'm in the friend zone, just make sure you invite me to the next friend gathering, you know?
Mhm.
And so I kind of took ownership and placed myself, right? Took myself off the breadcrumbing path because I'm
Yes.
too old for that, to be like, all right, we're friend zoning. Because
Yeah.
either we're romantic, especially with this individual, right? Because it's different for different people. But
Yeah.
for this dynamic, I'm like, okay, if we're not going to be romantic, then we can be platonic. And that's cool. You know what I mean? If there's going to be a middle ground, I don't know if I'm agreeing to that right now. That's just not where I
Right.
am. So you have to think about what you want because they're being clear about what they want.
And are you
They're
gonna
breadcrumbing you.
go along with it? Yep.
Right? And then I'm like, I deserve a little more. Like, I'm hungry. I need a whole meal. You know what I
But that's what
mean?
they
I can't
want.
I can't do the breadcrumb. So at some point, I got another clinical endpoint moment. What are we doing? Is this leading to a Thanksgiving feast? Or are you trying to take me to, McDonald's? What's happening?
I was gonna say even
So
less, like, we just going to, like, Baskin Robbins and just getting a cone?
look, something Taco Tuesday. Like, what's happening? But it's cool because I'm like, okay. And then of course, the response is what it is. But I think that's another way you can sort of like own the rejection or own the redirection,
Yeah.
in certain ways. And then it frees you up to then to see who else is in your orbit that is maybe giving you exactly what you want, who you are attracted to, who you are aligned
Mhm.
with.
Mhm.
Who deserves your time.
Yes. This is
'Cause
so
you can't
mature.
do that if you're playing these games with a lot of people,
Yep.
and
This is
especially
so
if you're
mature.
playing the game you don't wanna play, so
Going back to those unspoken contracts, right? Like, and
right.
recognizing it and being able to see them. I love this. And I said it a couple times. Like, this is so mature. It's so responsible. It's just so grown. And people always complain about the dating pool being contaminated, not
And they're contaminating
recognizing
it.
exactly, not recognizing their role in contamination. So you want to blame it on everybody else, but then you out here ghosting people. You're not being clear. You're doing all this stuff. You love bombing people, you silent treatment. You're doing all this stuff. You're playing games. You
I went
are
on a date with you,
contaminating.
now we're in the same place, and I don't see you, I don't speak to you. That is so
Toxic.
wild to me.
It is.
Like, we have literally gone on dates, or
Yep.
you have been intimate with each other
Yeah.
multiple times, or not multiple, but you have been. You
Yeah.
done probably shared life stories, you done got nuggets of knowledge and wisdom about your grandma, what she made, whatever y'all was later, and then now I gotta pretend I don't know you? I think that's wild. Why aren't
It's
you coming
very
up to me and
wild,
saying hello? Hi, good to see you.
that rejection. But
Like,
it's like, but you're agreeing to the rejection. You're doing it by not acknowledging.
yeah, and I saw you, and to me, the thing is like whoever saw whoever first. If I see you first, I'm gonna talk to you, regardless if like if I'm friend zoned or if I friend zoned you or I'm got friend
Yeah.
zoned. If I see you first, I'm gonna speak.
I
Now
mean,
I
because
will
that's
say I don't
generally
usually wear
how
my
it goes.
glasses. Sometimes I don't got my glasses on, so I can't see.
He can't see without his glass.
So and I'll come and I have my contacts in. So it is not shade. It is I promise. Like if I see you, I will. But sometimes I really just can't see.
You just made me chuckle thinking back about I tried to date this older man one time. And okay, I'm gonna tell my business. So I was trying to date this older man because I was like, let me try something different, more
Yeah.
mature, more settled. And this is while I was in my master's program. Baby, that man was playing so many games. Okay.
Or
So
oh,
many games. But what made me think about him is that he would be at park
of
and would
course, the
not
part.
exactly and would not have his glasses on. So we had kind of like we had drifted, right? Really,
Yeah.
it was him and I was just minding my business, right? And I just knew he was gonna pull up on me. And I was like, oh, this man can't see. He didn't even see me. And it was just so funny to me because any other time he would have pulled up on me. I said, baby can't see in the dark. And I wasn't offended, but somebody else would have been like, "How dare he not speak to me?" I was like, "Girl, you know that man can't
Exactly.
see without his glasses,
Can
and he ain't
see.
here trying to look young." But that's not your case.
I mean, that's why I'm like, that's why there should be a healthy curiosity. Because a lot of times you
Yes.
don't know.
Yes, and people
You
are in
don't
their
know.
own world, and so, like, we
Own
can be
world.
here, but not here. So, bringing us back practically, I love this. I'm having so much fun with you. How can somebody assess whether a relationship is, strategically sound and not
Mm.
just emotionally exciting?
I think the difference is you have to have a conversation with the person. You get to the point. I don't I don't think you need to share your strategy from the get-go. I personally don't think you need to do that because I think there
Mhm.
needs to just be like a organic sort of assessment. Like how do our bodies just respond in the same space together? Because that's
Yeah.
also information, right? That people don't think about. Like it's one thing to have your laundry list of things, but there's another thing to meet a person and feel their energy signatures. So
Yes.
your body is also because your body is receiving and transmitting information on its own, out second to your mind, right?
Autopilot. Yeah.
So you that's why I wouldn't say that you need to necessarily share everything in advance. I mean, there's definitely core principles I think that are fine, but it's like, how do I feel when I'm around them?
Yeah.
I think that's a real important factor. And I think as a lot of these other things start to check, where you're like, okay, like, oh, I like vibe, we are attracted, I like spending time, we're good. Then I think you're like, all right, what's my strategy? Like, I think there's a point where you have to have a mind meld where you are sharing your intellectual property around your framework and like what you really want. Because at that point you can actually evolve it and now
Yeah.
it's informed because it may shift. Maybe with this other person, you weren't willing to do A, B, C, D, E.
Yep.
And now with this person, you're like, I can do A, B, C, D, E, F, G with this one. So you don't want to tell somebody in advance what you will or won't do because you don't necessarily know yet.
You're not being present and you're not collecting data. You've already decided.
So I think that is, I think, so important to have like a open mind and but the biopsychosocial sort of reason why, because you are still collecting data. But I do think there reaches a point where you're like, all right, like we spent time, we're good. How do you want to spend your time till you die? What does that look like for you? And like,
Yeah.
then you can start to be like, all right, you want to you ultimately want to like have a cabin in the forest. You're like, oh, bitch, I don't want to do that. No. Okay. So we're going to be cool. I'm going to say hi to you when I see you out, but I do not want to live in no forest cabin.
No. No, thank
Mm-mm.
you.
Mm-mm. Like, that's what you be working towards and have regrets? I can't do it. But in the meantime, you have had a good time. But I think there's a point where you have to start to really share, and then with this person, you're like, "You know what, maybe I never thought about spending time in a cabin with them, but maybe I could be into it." Like how far cabin we talking about? Like how
Right,
far
or
away
can
from the
we just
city
do
is
this
it?
summers? Can we have 2 houses? You know what I
Like,
mean? Like,
and how does this work?
vacation home. Absolutely.
We can make this work, where we both getting what we want.
Absolutely.
So, but I think there has to be that mind meld moment. I think it's kind of like that. It's like, when do you do it?
Yeah.
I think you do it before I probably you feel too invested. Because you don't because this is another part of this is there's influence, right? A lot of times people are influenced to do things that may not actually be aligned to who they are
Ooh, say
because the
more.
the person that they're meeting is a quote unquote high value person. Well, you may not, I'm like, look, I'm about to, your audience gonna be like, what he about to say now? But like, just let's just use foot fetish
Okay,
as a category of things you may not normally do.
okay.
And with this person, you're like, you know what, they're hot, and I'm gonna do it. But now this person is thinking you're into it. They're thinking, oh, you love the thing that I love. That's weird. You get married, you're into it, you down the road, and they're still expecting foot fetish activity. You done got them where they at, you done da 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 da, and you're like, I actually don't like doing that. I never liked doing it.
And this is after the fact. Yep.
Now this person's like, well, dang. And it
Dang.
creates this whole situation. So it's important to, yes, do the body checks, but you do still have to be honest with yourself.
And the
What
other
am I gonna
person,
do?
people
Am I
involved.
gonna keep this sustaining?
Yep.
What is the key sustainability things that we need? If somebody has a high sex drive, right? I mean, things taper, but you shouldn't necessarily expect it to go away at
No.
a certain period of time. But if you're like, I don't want to do this anymore, and then you're mad that they're mad, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah. It's a
You
change and people
know,
are gonna respond and they have
so
the right to.
that's where there's that point in the conversation where like, I may have done the foot fetish stuff because I liked you, but now it's strategy mind meld time. I'm gonna be honest, that's not gonna be sustainable for me.
Yep. And some
So
people
you
don't
now
wanna do
know
that. Yeah.
if this is something that is critical for you, as much as I do not want to let you go, and as much as I did what I did, I gotta be real. If my goal is sustainability and long-term relationships.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's sort of the safe spot to be like, you know what? We did have fun. We haven't got a lease together or done whatever. Let me be an adult around what I can do to make this sustainable.
And also, I think it gives that other person the opportunity to decide
To
they
decide.
if they can go without that and go forward with you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because then now they're like, "All right, well, maybe we can do some other stuff." It doesn't feel like the rug's been pulled out from under you.
Mhm.
Or what I call it Southern Belle honey potting.
Say more.
Everybody honey pots, right? Everybody has a honey pot. They're like, "Ooh, hey, I'm attracted to you. Come over here. Look what I have." Like, we all do it, right? When we dress up, do different things as versions of honey potting. But they all have their own special one. And to me,
Yeah.
this one is like Southern Belle honey potting, where they just do all the things. They're so sweet. They've got the hospitality, they want the husband, they do what they do. And then when they get it, it's a whole different person.
Yeah.
You're like, actually, I didn't want to do any of that.
And it
Deal
happens
with it.
over and over again. Because I had someone
And
ask me,
it's
"Why is
crazy.
it that women switch up once they get the ring?" It's like, you won sometimes. I'm like, "You were okay with being manipulated, and they were manipulative, and now that they got what they want, they pull back." But some people don't know that that's what they're doing or what they're involved in sometimes.
Times. And you know what? You're saying some real truth because I think this is part of society. Not to give it an excuse, but I
Yeah.
do think if we're talking about strategy and dating,
Mhm.
that is a thing to say is like, how have I been honey potted? Like, has my honey potting been something I can keep up with? Or is there something I need to reveal about it to set us up for actual success?
Yes, because you think about it, people go from dating, having fun, playing games into like building lives, right? And
Because
there
now I'm
has
in the
to be
house
a
and you're in the
shift.
bathroom.
Yep. There has to be a shift in behavior. And some people, it's not an easy transition to go from playing and being outside to building a life.
It's 2 different things.
Yep. Yeah.
And me, one of them is snoring. If you snore, it's a problem for me.
Because you value your sleep.
I value my sleep.
And sometimes it could be like it could be worked on, but that could be a health indicator. Could means you need some better pillows or, pillows that are more
We
supportive.
have to figure that out. There was
Yeah.
this boy, he was so cute, so great. Honey, that snoring, I left to go sleep on the couch. It was so bad.
Yeah, that's bad.
I was like, "This is not sustainable. Cute
Mm-mm.
as you are, cute as a button. Oh my gosh. No."
No.
And I would gotta have a strategy conversation about that.
That's a deal breaker. Or
It's a
if we can't
deal
fix it, then
breaker.
it could be a deal breaker. But look, might be a joke where some people like, this is why people sleep in separate bedrooms. They very much love each other. We cannot sleep in the same space. I don't want
No.
to live without you though.
And I believe in a CPAP. I do. I
Okay.
definitely believe in a CPAP. Like, I believe in, like, working it out. But in the early dating phase,
Yeah.
look, the framework didn't framework enough for me to be like, "I'm gonna push through."
Y You just keep triggering, like, just random memories that I had. Oh my goodness. Like, I was going from, I don't know if I was going New York to DC or yeah, New York to DC,
Mm.
and it was a last minute trip, so I had to get on the bus. Dreadful. This man was snoring on the bus. He
Oh,
sounded
Lord.
like a tiger in the back. I'm not kidding. He was like, like
Ooh.
and it was like out of nowhere. I can't remember if I fell asleep and it woke me up, but like anybody that was near
Mhm.
him were like cracking up
Yeah.
laughing.
And my
Yeah.
dad was a bad snorer. Ooh,
Okay. And then there's
ooh.
that, right? So that's woven in to your lived
I'm
experiences.
like, I remember being a kid being like, "This is crazy work."
Yeah.
I
See,
mean, and
you
there were
just
reasons for it, right? Like him being military and like whatever chemicals he was been exposed to.
yeah.
But and he ended up getting a CPAP, so which
Okay.
is great. I'm like, I love devices.
Okay.
Put it on.
And we are gonna sleep good and live longer.
So there's solutions.
Yes. Okay. So do you believe love can survive without strategy?
Yeah, I think so. I actually do definitely think it can survive without strategy. I think it's just less predictable
Okay.
on the outcome. I think you just leave so much to chance, you
Okay.
know, without it. I think that I think for certain people that have such a similar culture, you don't necessarily need it. I think for people who are coming together who have different cultural backgrounds and different sort of um upbringings, then it's less likely for it to last,
Okay.
without a strategy. But there's statistics that say, like, people who get married in their late 80s tend to stay married,
Okay.
right? Or second marriages have a higher chance of lasting longer than the first one, in comparison.
Mhm.
They tend to last longer. Uh, and I think that's because people have learned, and I think there's a lot more conversation that's happening as you get older. You can start to
Mhm.
put into words your likes, your dislikes, like what you kind of want things to be, what are you dedicated to, um, and I think it's much harder without those real conversations, and I think that but I absolutely think love can exist without strategy for sure. I think that it's beautiful. I think love and beauty in a lot of ways are connected. And I think that when I think about beauty, I think about nature,
Okay.
right? I think about trees, I think about celestial bodies. And I think that in a lot of ways, trees in particular are connected through underground systems and they
Uh-huh.
share resources. And to me, that's an extension of love, right?
Yeah.
I want you to be good, I'm good. I'm helping out. And I think that when you have that in a relationship, it can last. I think a lot of it comes down to being supportive of the other person and
Mhm.
wanting them to flourish as much as you want yourself to flourish.
Yeah.
I think as much strategy as we can get into, I think the ultimate one is around how do I support you? How do you support me? What is our sort of underground root system that would sustain that? And I think sometimes when without strategy that can happen, And that's why I think when I say like culture is almost like a proximity for closeness in this tree metaphor. When you have the same culture, a lot of times you're planted in the same sort of soil, you kind of grew up in the same thing. So that's sort of baked in. But when
Mhm.
you don't necessarily have that and the root system has to travel, then you got to be more intentional about the design. Like, is there a moat between us? How do we get around that? Do we now need to build a bridge? Do we need IVF?
Yeah.
It can happen. We can be sustainable, we can make it, but we just may need some more innovation.
That's
So I
good.
think that, that's how I would try to answer that question, but it's absolutely possible, um, in both ways.
There's so much richness here that I'm absolutely releasing this in 2 parts. And this is gonna be special. It's gonna be a Tuesday and a Thursday drop. So if you whether you're watching the first part or the second part, make sure you loop back or go forward because there's so much that's been given here, so much wisdom and practicality and strategy that you can take and apply now. So, if you could leave the audience with one powerful truth to help them to rise and thrive, what would it be?
Oh my gosh. One powerful truth to rise and thrive, I would say really it's kind of a two-part. One, invest in your chosen family. Yeah, honestly, that's if I had to leave with one, it'd be invest in your chosen family. But the other part B, I would say is, take risks. Like invest in your chosen family and take risks. Like I think doing those two things will just pay dividends. They've paid so many dividends for me over the years and pay attention to that friend that you may not be paying as much attention to who has still been there. A lot of times you forget that friend, and that's the friend that will hold you down.
That's good. That is good. Okay. Thank you. I'm like, I don't want to, continue the episode, but that in itself, about friendship, and that chosen family, like, I think that's a lot. Well, as much as I hope, have enjoyed our time with Dr. Christopher N. Cross today. And in addition to this being split into 2 episodes, Dr. Cross will be back with us to discuss main character energy and the science behind it. So make sure you be on the lookout for that in the coming weeks. So, audience, this is where we shift to you, where you're going to reflect, take action, and be affirmed. So, for your reflection, where in your life or in your relationships are you relying on hope instead of strategy? I want you to identify one area, whether that's dating, boundaries, purpose, communication, whatever it is, and ask, what am I optimizing for? What evidence do I have that this approach is working? And from there, to redesign one habit or standard this week with intention. And I'm, of course, not going to leave you without an affirmation. I am not behind. I am becoming. I am designing my life and relationships with clarity, wisdom, and purpose. So I want to thank you all again for tuning in to another episode of Rise and Thrive with Dr. J. Nicole. Make sure you like, subscribe, you share, follow wherever you're listening or watching this podcast. Join the community, leave us some comments, get back and review, help this platform to grow, and share it with someone that you think would benefit from what's been submitted today. And I also want to encourage you to send in your letters, send in your relationship questions, not just romantic, but also it could be family, it could be friendships, it could even be work, because at the end of the day, our human experience is relationship based. So send those in so we can process them and break them down here on air. And make sure you check out the merch at www.evolvewithdrjnicole.com and scroll down to the podcast page and click shop the merch. So we have all types of wonderful things. It's cold right now, so we got the crew necks and hoodies and the cuffed beanie. And spring will be upon us soon. So we also have t-shirts. There's also notebooks and different things, mugs. And I'm gonna be releasing some more merch too, just to make it more diversified. So if there's some things you want to see in merch, also let me know. And like I said, thank you again, Christopher, for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure. I love showing off my Howard friends and engaging with them. It's such a dope community and family to be part of, and to be able to share you all with other people, I think is also an inspiration. and it helps to keep the legacy alive. So,
Absolute pleasure having me. I mean, absolute pleasure me being here. Absolutely wonderful conversation. Thank you so much, Jeannie. You know, I love spending time with you. And I look forward to you coming to my birthday in a few months too.
yes, yes, indeed. 40, here we come. Well, thank you all. And that is all. Remember to keep rising in faith and thriving in purpose. And I will see you next week. Take care.